How well do you know your D chord? Do you know this one? Do you know this one? How about this one? What about this? So rather than memorizing a whole book full of black dot diagrams, having no idea what you're doing, and just rote memorization, what we're going to do today is learn how to think about it, learn how to visualize it, so you can generate thousands of variations on the fly using inversions, sevenths, ninths, and everything else, all without having to, like I said, stumble through tons and tons of black dot diagrams. So let's check it out. First, let's check out what a D major chord is. It's every D, F sharp, and A on the fretboard. That's the root, the major third, and the perfect fifth. Okay, so how does that look on the actual fretboard? That's actually kind of tricky. So if you were to do it just with letter names, what you would be seeing is something like this, where you gotta see and somehow memorize every F sharp, A, there's a D, there's a, like this is actually really hard if you don't have the fretboard memorized. It would look like this. Where's the D over here? There's the D, there's the D, there's an F sharp. So how do we do this? Luckily for us, every D, F sharp, and A has a very, very predictable pattern that looks like this. Check it out. It's always caged. You've heard that, I'm sure, 1,000 times, but it's C form, then A form, right? Then G form, then E form, then D form, D. So C, A, G, E, and D. Now, if you just memorize that, that's not enough. You gotta know when I'm playing a D form, I need to know that that's the root, fifth, root, and third. I also need to know the auxiliary notes that are around that are not part of the basic shape. Like there's a third down there, there's a fifth there. If I wanna use my pinky, there's a third over there. Or if I reach up, there's a fifth there. So now, the way to think about this that I found really effective is 3 steps. Your ear is really sensitive to 3 things: the lowest note or the bass, which is usually a root, third, fifth, or seventh, the note that's on the top, and then do you put any extra colors in, like a seventh or a ninth. So if we go back to our fretboard here, the basic ways to play it that you might know already will always be from the root. So there's your D form, your C form, your A form, your G form. You can actually play it like this too, and then the E form. But what we want to be able to do is have every possible variation. So that means now what I'm going to do is start playing from the third. A lot of guys will use their thumb, like an Ed Sheeran song. What that does is it changes the character. It's still the same chord, but it changes the character a little bit, right? So if I want the third and the bass, I can have that. I can have this. I can have this. I can have this. So changing the bass note has a huge impact on the sound of the chord, even though it's still a D. So now when I play a basic D chord, I got a root in the bottom and a third on top. If I want to change to the fifth on top and just reach to the fifth, that still works, but you'll notice I'm missing a third of the chord. So I might want to include something like that. That's a whole different fingering, and now I have the third. Or maybe like this. Okay, so as I'm looking at the C form, I'm not just thinking 3 notes like a C chord. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I gotta memorize the entire C form so I know where those thirds are. I want to play fifth in the bass, play third on top, right? It's really important to know what open strings you have available, because that allows you now to keep the root on the bass, for example, and now put the fifth on top by playing a little bit of A form. Now that opens up a finger to start playing melody. You could have third on the bass here, fifth on top, third on the bass, root on top. How about fifth on the bass? Very classic kind of sound. Or I could do it up here. I could do it here. A lot of guys will play. I got a D chord, but I got these 2 non-chord tones, but they sound really cool in the context. So let's say I want something like this. Now the third step, once you can control the bottom and you can control the top, right? Root, root fifth, root third. Third root, third, third, fifth. Fifth root, fifth, third, fifth. Once you can do that, then we can start looking in between the notes. For example, I know, and so will you, is that behind the root of a chord is a major seventh. So there should be a major seventh right there. And now a whole other palette of chords opens up. So now I can play with the major seventh, C form. The seventh on the bottom too. So going down to B minor kind of thing. We could play up here, A form. We could use the open string. Got the seventh there, the seventh on the top. Now root, third, root fifth, root seventh on the top, right? Or root with the seventh. How do we do that? We can do it like this. Or root third with the seventh, root fifth with the seventh, and then root seventh. You typically don't double the sevenths, and then back to maybe up here. Try E form. So you see how we could just make them on the fly if we can visualize caged. If I drop the seventh back one more, I get a dominant seventh chord. So let's say I have a root with the seventh, root third with the seventh, root fifth with the seventh. Let's try this one. How about root fifth? That should be a good one like this. Or root seventh. So you see how the character really can change, right? How about third seventh? And so it's so fun once you can visualize it. The amount of chords that you can create on the spot that will serve a particular song or situation or whatever, they'll come to you really fast, and you don't have to memorize thousands of black dot diagrams, and you'll be able to do everything, including ninths, 11ths, and 13ths. Let's just actually cover that really quick. So if I want a ninth, remember a ninth is going to be 2 above. Well, let's say if I go back to major, let's say just major chord, and say major 9, so I'll have a 7th and a 9th. And now I got all kinds of options. How about this one? How about something like, that's pretty. How about a third in the bottom, 7th and a 9th. And if you need to eliminate a note, always start by eliminating the 5th, because the 5th is already inside the note you're playing. So you don't need to re-articulate it. You can drop that 5th and start using something like a 7th or 9th instead. So here we go. I'm missing a third, so how do I get a third? Maybe I put the third down here. Whoops. Right, I got this. I've never actually played this one before. Pretty. So I got a D major chord with a third on the bottom, 7th on top, and a 9th on the inside. So if you structure your thinking about this as what notes on the bottom, what notes on the top, and then add extra color, then you'll be able to use caged in a very powerful way that will allow you to generate tons of variations of any chord on the fly. Good luck. Let me know if this helped in the comments. Thanks.